Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi, welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Our guest is Sharon Hughes. Sharon is a confidence and self-worth expert, author, speaker, coach, and Sharon is a multi-award winning author, celebrated for her best-selling book, The Girl in the Garage, 3 Steps to Letting Go of Your Past. She is dedicated to empowering individuals from all walks of life to build confidence and self-worth, helping them excel in leadership roles, break free from people-pleasing habits, embrace their bodies, and overcome self-doubt. Well, those are just little things, right?
These are just little things
Thank you
that
for
tend to
being,
suck us in.
yeah. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Karen. It's so great to be with you this morning.
Yeah, so for people listening or watching, in the show notes, we'll have a link to Sharon's book. And anytime she publishes something in the future, if she decides to do that, we'll keep adding to it. So Sharon, let me start with your bio. Is there anything, because I didn't read the whole thing. I know you're pretty accomplished. Is there anything you would like the audience to know more about your bio to start with, your professional background?
Oh, gosh. I think I've had a very interesting career. I'm kind of jack of all trades because what I did professionally that actually helped build kind of my name was I had an international wholesale home decor line, which actually positioned me amongst a lot of women. And what was interesting was I saw competition amongst women that was really unhealthy. And that's what spurred me on to start entrepreneurial events for women. And I loved doing that so much that I pivoted. I closed my wholesale business. Well, part of the story is I got divorced and I just decided that I was going to completely pivot in so many areas. And then I got certified as a life coach and just started that journey forward of walking with women and helping them to know that they're significant and they don't need to compete amongst others to be significant.
So true. I love it that there seems to be more of an emphasis lately, because it was very competitive in the past. And I think I know we can trace that back to patriarchy. We're trained to be that way. But now there's more of a sense of a collaboration, and now that more women come out and tell their stories of their traumas, it's even more important that we lift each other up and collaborate, because we all bring unique things to the table anyway.
Right. Yeah. And the more people I speak with, the more profound it becomes to me that trauma is everywhere. It's not held to any particular socioeconomic class of people or not even gender. We know that women tend to have a lot more trauma than men, but what we're finding out now is that because of our culture telling men to, suck it up and be a man, they don't report the trauma. So statistically, they have a lot of trauma as well. And
Right.
it's just, I hate to say this, but being human is kind of hard and messy. We have trauma, all of us.
Yes, some more so than others, but ever since the pandemic, a lot of academics, researchers, therapists are saying that was pretty traumatic for our universe as well.
Yeah.
First,
Yeah.
so other people got to pivot and live their best lives during COVID, and our minorities and certain populations of people, it wasn't so good.
Mm-hmm.
But Sharon, about your own personal trauma that your book's based upon, what about your story is appropriate to share today or you feel comfortable sharing?
Well, my story certainly isn't unique at all. Having a lot of abuse as a child is just so prevalent all over the world. But I think what is unique is how I came out of it. I was very surprised. This was probably, gosh, about 12 years ago. I had went to seek some counseling and had a counselor tell me that I was an anomaly. He said, "You should have 10 kids from 5 baby daddies, be living in like a trailer and have an addiction to drugs." And you know what? I understood what he was trying to say to me, but I thought that's so offensive because what I have experienced is a lot of very, very successful people have had so much trauma. They've learned how to put the mask on and keep moving forward. Now, is that healthy to put the mask on? No, it's not. We should not pretend that we're okay. But a lot of people don't have a safe space where they can express that they're not okay. So I understand that because I was that girl too. But it's like looking at like this is what culture says because you have had trauma. You really shouldn't be successful. You really should be an addict living in a trailer. I was like, that's like a bias right there within the therapy community. And I found it
Hmm.
pretty shocking.
Pretty inappropriate too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So
Well,
I think I like to bust norms.
yeah, I was assigned a social worker when I ran away from home, from a dysfunctional trauma, home with a lot of trauma. And the social worker assigned to me. Now, meanwhile, I am a social worker, but the social worker assigned at the time accused me of sleeping around and doing drugs, and none of it was true. And even if it was true, that is not the way to approach a teenager that's in crisis who needs help, right? And it was like, it was my fault that I was a trauma survivor and not any of the adults involved. So,
Mm,
yeah, it was because of that shitty experience with that social worker. It clicked for me that I knew I wanted to be someone that was a safe place for survivors,
hmm.
supportive and would believe them.
Yeah.
So, so I think I read in your longer bio that you were kidnapped. Can you say a little more about that?
Oh, yeah. So my parents divorced when I was probably about 5. And my mother we had left California. She was remarrying someone. We moved to Missouri, and I was the youngest of the kids. One of my brothers ran away from home, hitchhiked from Missouri all the way to California to be back with our father. And my father, he was a rough character, I'll put it that way. But he really didn't have any interest in my siblings for whatever reason he wanted me. And actually, we can unpack that in a moment because it's kind of interesting. But he used my brother to find me. And so I was abducted out a window when I was 7 and drove back to California. And I didn't see my mother for the next 7 years. So what's very interesting about him is when you look at, you know the saying, hurt people hurt people. And to know that he was such a broken man that made really, really bad decisions, but it was so stemmed in his self worth. He and his sister had been put in an orphanage when they were children, and someone came to adopt his sister, and the orphanage would not split them up. So he was taken with his sister also. And I thought, why would a child even know that? That somebody comes and wants your sister. They don't want you, but you're part of the package. Like he must have had
Okay,
so much trauma from that.
right.
So at a very young age, he was having major crises in his life. And as an adult, nobody was talking about this in the, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Like he was trying to navigate life. So what did he do? Like most men, when they were old enough, they joined the military. And one thing led to another after him, and he had multiple addictions, and he's just not a healthy man, and it's really sad, but we can see those patterns when we get, far enough away and healed enough to look back over our shoulder and see what was really going on.
Right. It sounds like you understood the rationale behind it. But what was the impact on you, though? Because
Yeah,
that's less subjective, right?
right.
Subjectively, you deserved a loving, nurturing father that protected you and it's healthy. But that's not what you got.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to say, okay, I understand A, B gets you to C. How does it feel? Feels terrible,
Yeah.
you know. Um, it caused a lot of issues that I then struggled with because he was a very controlling man. And love was really based on perform making unhealthy decisions for ourselves because we're craving love, craving belonging and community. So that was really the trajectory that my relationship with my father, propelled me into, was this life of trying to please in order to be loved. But at the same time, I had been through a lot of physical and sexual abuse, and it wasn't just him. There were other people in my life. So it's interesting when you do come to the other side and you look back and you go, well, why did I do some of these things? It was like, oh, I didn't have the word grooming until recent years. It was like, oh, as a very small child, there were people in my life that were grooming me. So now there's even more understanding of what was going on and what caused me to make some of the decisions that I did make.
Has this led to greater compassion for you and little Sharon?
Um, that's a good question. Know that I would frame it in that way. Excuse me just a moment. Pardon me.
No worries. Frame it in any way that resonates with you.
Yeah, I think it's helped me to understand that I was actually a person that was screaming at the top of her lungs and nobody could hear me. And because of the way that our culture was decades ago, nobody knew what to do with a child that was acting out in different ways because they didn't know the questions to ask. It's not
Right.
like now, like with social media, and there's so much more information that's available. Yeah.
May I ask about if I ask you something you don't feel comfortable answering, please just let me know. But I'm curious about how how your mom coped. Was she also a trauma survivor, and how did she cope? Like, I know that was hell for you, but as a mother myself, I can't imagine my daughter being gone for 7 years.
Mhm.
Are you comfortable talking about your mom?
Oh, yeah. So my mom's been passed away for close to 30 years now. Yeah, she'd had a lot of trauma as well. Interestingly, she was also adopted and had a lot of self-worth issues and I think that that's kind of common for people that are adopted is they wonder why their birth parents didn't want them. That's the go-to. I wasn't wanted. Well, they don't understand sometimes, especially back then in the like 1930s to early 40s, there was a lot going on in the world, and some folks literally could not care for their children, so they would put them up for adoption. But she had tremendous struggles, and when life was hard for her, she would self-medicate. So she would take a Tylenol PM and go to bed. And so I saw that, and she was a broken woman. But I was young. I was 29 when she had passed away, so there wasn't a lot of opportunity to have the kind of conversations like you and I are having of just, what had happened, what led you here, because she was also so wounded that she was very angry and bitter. Very common reaction,
Hmm.
very common to act out in that way. But she also, what I saw in her was that she gave up her power. Because I really believe we have the power to choose, and we need to use our power to choose how we're going to respond to things. Now, that's not easy, especially when you've had trauma. Sometimes you don't even realize you have the power to choose. But the most important choice is to make about yourself. What do you believe about yourself? And when I realized that, that was a complete game changer for me.
Yeah. I think our moms are a little bit similar. My mom wasn't adopted, but she had major trauma and turned to, well, she abused prescription drugs.
Mm.
And I think it ended her, well, I don't think I know that that pathway ended in an early death for her. Do you believe
Mm.
that's true for your mom as well?
Well, I do believe that anger, unforgiveness, and resentment causes toxicity in our bodies. But
Yeah.
she also grew up in the era where women used a lot of talcum powder. So now there's big lawsuits against like even like baby powder companies because they put talc in their powder. And they found in research it's connected to ovarian cancer. So she actually died from ovarian cancer. But I think, you know, not everybody does, right? Not everybody dies from an overuse of talcum powder. So, what's the connection between holding in all of this? How does that affect our bodies physiologically as well as emotionally? What impact does that have on our health? I think that there's a lot of really good research out there. I really like what Dr. Caroline Leaf is sharing, and there's going to be more to come for sure.
You say Leaf, Leaf?
Yes. Yeah, she is a brain researcher, and she's written a few amazing books about really taking all of your thoughts captive and learning how to deal with what you think.
Yeah, I do a form of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy that is all about being aware of how you think and then analyzing them
Hmm.
and then learning how to change any of those negative thoughts for healthy thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a powerful tool. Learning to reframe things has really helped me a lot because we can get really hung up and then our mind starts spinning of this, that, and the other that the person did. And sometimes we need to take a pause and be with somebody that can really help us walk through that of learning how to think differently. I help my clients learn how to think for themselves, not against themselves. That's a powerful tool.
I love how that you phrase that. That's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So most authors tell me that writing their story is incredibly therapeutic. Did you feel that same way?
No, actually, I didn't. I think at the point when I wrote everything, I was so healed. I felt like I can't even believe I'm writing that this is my life. It just felt so far away from me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I wrote very, very carefully so that no one is triggered. I think it's important that when we share our stories that we're careful because you don't know what will come up in the story that could cause somebody to really start spinning and coming undone. So it's written like very, very PG. If somebody's listening that has a teenage daughter that's in trouble, it would be suitable for maybe 14, 15 and up. Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful.
Hmm.
Well, so you've done a lot of healing. It
Hmm.
feels, you feel like you've really worked hard. What
Hmm.
was the most healing practice or therapy modality or self-care practice that really helped you on your journey?
Well, again, I think I'm probably the anomaly. Um, I'm a woman of faith, and one morning I was praying. I had been through just a lot, and this wasn't that long ago. This was about 8 years ago, I'll say. Had to have been about 8 years ago. And I was praying, and I was like, I am not going to make it. I was really coming undone. It was kind of like dark night of the soul type of thing. And I literally heard God say to me, what do you believe about yourself? And I thought, are you kidding me? You know everything. And he said, is it true? And I thought, Nobody's ever asked me that. I've been to different counselors. Nobody, not even any of my closest friends, have ever said to me, "What do you believe about yourself? And is it true?" To me, that is one of the greatest gifts. It's like a privilege to be able to sit back and go, these words that have been spoken over me, they're not even true. And I took the bait. I believed it for decades, and it just about destroyed me. And those two questions have become,
So powerful.
yeah, it's the cornerstone of everything that I do. When somebody shares with me, I take them back. Okay, what are you believing about this situation? What are you believing about that person? What are you believing about yourself in this? And is it true? We have to stay in the truth. There's a lot of people running around going, well, I have my truth. You can have your truth, but if it's not the actual truth, it's not setting you free, it's really not very helpful.
Yeah, what I encounter a lot is if I'm working with someone super intelligent, when they have a thought, they automatically assume it's true because of how smart they are. I'm
Mhm.
like, smart people think things all the time that are simply not the truth,
Mm,
and just doing some education around that. Like, just
yeah,
because we think something does not make it true, and
that
really
is so
looking for the
good.
evidence.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that is so good. Ooh, girlfriend,
Mhm.
you need to tweet that out.
I'll forget. I'm menopausal. I'll forget about it in 5 minutes. So, um, yeah, I think thought work is incredibly powerful. It impacts everything.
It does. It does. Because a parent yells at you and tells you you'll never amount to anything. Okay, well, I could go on a tangent about that. The spoken word is powerful, doesn't make it true.
Right.
Doesn't and I was shocked. I took my two, I call them the God questions. I took them into corporate training and tested this out without saying, God told me this. I thought, I might not be able to do that in corporate. But it was shocking the response that it got. I had people crying. This one man came up to me and he said, I haven't spoken to my family in 10 years and I'm going to call them tonight. I was shook. This is a game changer and it's so simple. So I tell everybody that I work with, set a reminder on your phone to go off and ask you, what are you believing about yourself? Do it every single day because you need to be like, okay, what do I believe? Do I believe I'm going to go into that board meeting and I'm going to fail and I will fumble? I won't have my numbers right. If you're thinking that, you're already setting yourself up to have mistakes. I don't like to say failures. I want to say mistakes. But if you're going in and you're thinking, okay, I have put all my programs together, I have my spreadsheets, I'm smart. I can go in and share. I can do this. That shifts your mind. That's even just a reframe of what you're thinking. It's so simple. Most people don't even realize how easy reframing is.
Well, it's a lot of what I do in therapy and coaching. I'm guessing you do that a lot in your coaching as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
When
such
you,
a gift, right? It's so amazing to see somebody go, "Oh, that?" They're like, "Oh, that was easy."
yeah, I remember back in the early days when I used to do what's called counters with people. Another word is affirmations. And there's also a lot of these statements in the Bible, about our value. And I
Mhm.
remember I worked with a man that was in a gang and had recently gotten out only because the military took him.
Mm.
And when we first started doing counter work about the truth of his core of who
Mhm.
he wasn't the things that he did, the essence of who he was bawling because he said
Yeah.
no one ever, ever, ever spoke affirming words to him his whole life. So
Mm.
to get him to do that for himself was so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you know, most people don't talk to themselves the same way that they would talk to a good friend or one of their children. We're much harder on ourselves than we ever ought be. And it's very damaging. It starts creating that neural pathway that just loops a story over and over in our minds. If it's not serving you, I say take it out with the trash,
Yep.
create a new thought pathway. That's hard work because our brain wants to default to what it's used to, but it can be done.
It's just practice. I tell people it's just like you wouldn't expect yourself to wake up one day and go run a marathon without the practice. Our
Right.
thoughts are the same. Now I'm curious, like in your bio, one of the things that says you help people is their bodies. Do you do the thought work around their bodies as well?
Hmm. Yeah, I
What does
do.
that look like? Share a little bit what that looks like.
Well, there's so much shaming and blaming, especially when we've got, Hollywood telling us what a body ought to look like. And a lot of people, especially our culture here in America, it's, you know, you, we celebrate or we cry over a bucket of ice cream. It doesn't matter what the event is. It's like comfort food, comfort food. And, it's very interesting how comfort food is made. Boy, the food cartel is going to be mad at me, but, there's the bliss
Sure.
factor. So,
Sure.
yeah. So go Google the bliss factor and you'll see a lot of foods are actually produced to hit your brain to make you want more. So even if you're somebody that's pretty self-disciplined and you go, oh, I'm going to a birthday party and we're going to have cake or whatever it is, why do you end up wanting a second and third piece? You're full, you've had a lovely time. You know that you don't want it, you don't need it. But then there's that little green-eyed monster that comes out that goes, "Oh yeah, I really do want it. I really do need it. It's been a long week. I need this." So we
I
need to
need this
think,
hit.
right? And we need to think differently. How can I comfort myself without eating something that's not good for me? Because I was having this conversation with somebody. I was like, if you had a Porsche or a Mercedes, would you put Kool-Aid in the gas tank? No, because you know that that would destroy the engine. You would put, gasoline, the appropriate um, gasoline in there. So why do we keep fueling our body with garbage? There's food addiction. That's like a whole nother thing. But
And emotional eating.
this emotional eating, and then we get into a place like you eat something and then you're mad at yourself about it. Well, that's not serving you either. It's like we
Right.
have to learn to love our bodies. Like I tell women, like women that have had babies or, maybe they're planning to have a baby, like value your body. You were created to carry life in your womb. That's huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could go on and on about that, Karen.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not going to do too much more digging because, like you said, we could go on and on. But I'm curious because you
Mhm.
mentioned your mom coped with parental PM.
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of addictive or what's the word, maladaptive coping skills before you got healthy?
I think just people pleasing. And then I'm extremely bold and extroverted. So very big personality typically. And I think, when I was younger, a lot of people just didn't know what to do with that. Because when we were in school in the 70s and 80s, oh my goodness, I'm giving away how old I am. You were supposed to be very compliant. They didn't know about letting kids have something in their hand that they could fiddle with because it actually helped them with their attention and, different creative ways that kids can learn. I loved learning, but I was there to get things that I needed emotionally, that human connection, because I was not getting it at home. Yeah.
People pleasing is a big thing with survivors. Same with
Mhm.
body image. You know,
Yeah.
and low confidence. It all makes
Yeah.
sense. So what's next for you? Do you have a big project coming up or big plans for your future? What's next?
Yeah. So I'm working on my next book, and the book is the same name as my podcast, called to confidence. And I'm working on a program that's called Kingdom Confidence for entrepreneurial women that struggle with imposter syndrome and thinking that they're just not enough for the C-suite. So I'm really excited about those two projects.
Very cool. And I'd like to see if there's any words of wisdom for a survivor that's listening and they're not nearly as far as you are in your healing journey. Maybe they're feeling pretty hopeless. Do you have words of wisdom for them today?
I do. Thank you. So, dear friend that's listening, one of my favorite sayings is believing a lie is just as powerful as believing the truth. So write that down and reflect on it. It's really important that you know what you're believing about yourself and make sure you stay in the truth.
Beautiful. Well, I am so appreciative, Sharon, that you were a guest today and shared your wisdom with our audiences. So thank you for
Karen.
being here.
Oh, it's such a joy to be with you. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing to help the world be a better place.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.